Hello, I'm Dr. Cheryl Patton, and I'm here to help you understand the basics of APA citation. To date, the newest edition is APA 7th, so that's the edition I'll be discussing in this short instructional video. I'll begin by telling you a bit about the reason for using citations in your papers. Well, first and foremost, it's meant to give credit to the original author whose intellectual property has led you to the ideas that you're sharing in your own writing. When you read ideas or facts in your research, those ideas and facts will come through in your writing. If you write them verbatim, that is word for word in a direct quote, it might seem more clear to you that you have the responsibility to cite that author. But even when you paraphrase, since you're relaying information that you have gleaned from another source or a number of sources, you cite that as well. This avoids plagiarism. Plagiarism is the unethical act of taking credit for another's work or deceiving the reader regarding the origins of the written work. You could even self-plagiarize, which is also unethical. Self-plagiarism is the act of presenting your own previous work as an original current work. So citations cover these instances. It's necessary to cite enough, but not too much. Though oversighting is better than underciting, but just remember to only cite the sources you have read and the takeaways from those readings that you have added to your paper. So when do you need to include citations? Whenever you include facts or figures that are not considered common knowledge. Are you using a direct quote? You need to cite. Are you paraphrasing material that you have read? You still need to cite. Or are you reprinting or modifying a figure or table that you have seen? You need to cite, and in that case, you might even need permission from the copyright holder. Now that I have explained a bit about why citations are necessary and when they are needed, I'll offer you guidance on just how to incorporate citations into your written work. You can use APA citations in your writing, or in-text citations as they're called, in one of two ways. You can use parenthetical citations, which are so named because of the placement of the entire citation within parentheses, or narrative citations, which appear in the running text of the document. Here are examples of each. Now, bear in mind that in an actual APA paper, you would use double spacing throughout the entire paper, which this slide does not replicate for space concerns. The parenthetical citation here signifies that the sentence shown is paraphrased from two different sources. Now, let's look closely at the citation itself in this first example. There's a beginning parentheses, followed by the author's surname, no first name here, no junior, no senior. An ampersand follows that. That's that and sign. And then another author's surname. Then there's a comma and the year of publication. Now after this, there's a semicolon with two authors listed in the same format as the first set of authors. The citation ends with an end parentheses and a period. The period does not go after the sentence, but after the citation in this instance. If more than one source is used in one citation, as this is the case in this citation, list the sources in alphabetical order according to the first author's surname. So in other words, the sources are listed in the order that they appear in the reference section of your paper. For the narrative citation, number 2 here, there's an author surname followed by the word and, A-N-D, spelled out, and another author surname. Then the year of publication is in parentheses. This is the difference between the two types of citations. The lack of quotation marks and page numbers signify that the author paraphrased the information she gleaned from her reading of the Dellery and Gupta work. So notice the first citation uses the ampersand, the parenthetical citation. The narrative citation spells the word out because it's part of the narrative. Now, when do we use short direct quotes rather than paraphrasing? When we do that, we need to insert quotation marks to show exactly where the quote begins and ends. We also include the page number or the paragraph number to show where the readers can find that exact quotation. The first bullet point is an example of a parenthetical citation, and the second is an example of a narrative citation. Please take notice of the lack of space between the parentheses and the citation, and the inclusion of a space between the P period, signifying page, and the actual number of that page. Also, take a look at the second bullet point, the narrative citation. The letters et al. Are shown. Why is this? Well, when we cite works that have more than 2 authors, APA 7th edition uses et al. Instead of writing all the authors' surnames. Now it's et al. Period. There's no period after et, and the period appears after al. Now, if this appeared as a parenthetical citation rather than a narrative citation, the comma would appear after the period following all, meaning et space al period comma and the year. Now, occasionally, you may find the need to include a direct quote of 40 plus words, so more than 40 words, or 40 or more words. In most cases, do not make this commonplace, as your written work is meant to be your own work. Now, there are some exceptions to this. For example, a narrative inquiry study will often include multiple long direct quotes from the participants, but as a general rule, aim for very few of these in written assignments unless specifically required for some reason. Now, if you include a long quote, treat it as a block quotation. That is, introduce the quote in a sentence, and then when you copy the verbatim words of an author or authors, start a new line and indent the entire quote. See how everything's indented? And you would indent 0.5 inches from the margin in APA format. You end with the page number or paragraph number of the long quote as shown here. Now notice the difference between a short quotation and a long quotation in APA format. This long quote does not include quotation marks, and the punctuation in this case follows the quote rather than the citation. So there's a difference between long direct quotes and short direct quotes. So let's recap some of these key points in the video. Cite your sources when you paraphrase or quote. Use et al. For 3 or more authors. Spell out the word and for a narrative citation, and use the ampersand symbol for parenthetical citations. If more than one source is used in one citation, list those sources in alphabetical order according to the first author's surname. Use quotation marks for direct quotes of fewer than 40 words. And if you're using a direct quote of 40 or more words, use a block quotation. And in those block quotations, there are no quotation marks and there's a period after the quote, not after the end parentheses. So there you have it, some tips on APA citations. There's some more to know about citations in APA, but that's the basics. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them.